You're hanging out after hours with Matt Anderson, presented by Inside the Gamecocks.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome into the show. My name is Matt Anderson, and I am the source for all things Gamecock. Today is April 16th. Got a great show ready for you. It should be a jam-packed show. I'm pretty excited about it. Just like last week, the Gamecocks baseball team is playing their midweek game right now, and it looks like Tippett just went yard. So Will Tippett got a couple home runs the past couple of games. I'm really excited for him because it's been a tough run for him so far this season for the Gamecocks. But right now it is the top of the seventh, nobody out, and the Gamecocks are winning 4-2, and Will Tippett just hit an absolute no-doubter out to left field. So hopefully him sticking to the right side of the plate is going to allow him to have more competitive at-bats. And as we saw against Florida, he clearly has some power when he gets the right wind and when he really gets a hold of a baseball. So excited for Will Tippett. Again, the Gamecocks are up 4-2. Top of the seventh, nobody out, and Cole Messina is at the plate right now. A little bit of baseball talk to start out since the game is on. When we last spoke on this show, Gamecocks defeated North Carolina 1-0. They followed that up with a 10-3 victory over Florida in the Swamp. And then on Saturday, held on a game that got a little hairy at the end to win 9-8. And then the comeback effort fell short on Sunday in Gainesville. The Gamecocks fell 11-9 to Florida. But it was a great week for the Gamecocks. 3-1 on the week, picking up 3 wins against quality opponents. Florida was ranked last week. I don't know if they're still ranked, but big time wins for the Gamecocks. And with the Gamecocks up 4-2 right now, Gamecocks hopefully can pull this one off against the Citadel in Charleston as well. I just want to give you a quick recap of where South Carolina stands in the SEC baseball pecking order. When you look at the SEC East, and this is the last year of the SEC East and the SEC West in baseball, at least from my understanding, you have Kentucky sits alone at the top of the SEC, 14-1 in the conference, 30-5 overall. Just an absolute wagon is Kentucky right now. Kentucky, for better or for worse, 14-1 in conference play. That's a heck of a record. Their schedule will get more difficult going forward. In second place, you have Arkansas, 12-3 in conference and 30-5 overall. Just a heck of a number there. Then you have Tennessee, 10-5 in conference, 30-6 overall. Vanderbilt, 8-7 in conference, 26-10 overall. The Gamecocks 8-7, 25-11 overall, and I missed Texas A&M. Texas A&M is 11-4 and 32-4 overall. So right now the Gamecocks would slot in 6th in the SEC, and remember the SEC is the toughest conference in college baseball. So to be sitting there at 6th right now with all the doom and gloom and the naysayers on message boards and on social media and fans who, demand excellence from the University of South Carolina, they're still sitting in a pretty good spot. They probably, if I had to guess, would be hosting a regional right now based on their record in the SEC, the record overall, and their RPI. I think they would probably be a host. If not a host, they'd probably be the best 2 seed in the NCAA tournament. But a lot of baseball left in front of them. To kind of close out the SEC, Georgia is 7-8 in conference, 27-9 overall. Georgia is a dang good ball club, and they have literally probably the best hitter in college baseball over the last couple of years over there as well. Florida is 7-8 and 18-17 overall. And then you have Missouri bringing up the rear at 5-10 in conference and 16-21 overall. Get over to the SEC West. LSU and Auburn are actually below Missouri, if you can believe it. LSU is 3-12 in conference, 22-15 overall. Auburn is 2-13, 8-17 overall. So LSU and Florida and Vanderbilt and a lot of those teams are teams that really have been pumping NIL into their program. And LSU won the national championship last year, and they're 3-12. normally LSU is way higher. So you can see that, buying players and, doing what you're doing at LSU, it doesn't always equate to the best team in the conference. You have Mississippi State 7-8, 22-14 overall. Alabama 6-9, 24-12 overall, and Ole Miss 5-10 in the SEC, 20-16 overall. So with that being said, the Gamecocks are still in the thick of it for hosting a regional. If the Gamecocks get hot at the right time, a national seed is still not out of the picture for the Gamecocks, especially with where their RPI is right now. I think their RPI is around 15th in the country. That's a really, really good number, and that's what helped the Gamecocks host last year before they went down to Florida and Gainesville in the Super Regional. Looking ahead right now, the Gamecock baseball team is playing the Citadel right now, like we talked about earlier. Looks like the bases might be loaded. No, bases were empty, and Ethan Petrie strikes out. Speaking of the bases loaded, the Gamecocks did have a bases loaded opportunity in the third inning of this game tonight and managed to only get one run in. So that was a little disappointing. Gamecocks swinging the bats with runners in scoring position just hasn't been what it needs to be to truly be an elite team in college baseball this year. But baseball is a funny game, and it would not surprise me at all to see the Gamecocks get hot at the right time. Speaking of getting hot at the right time, this weekend, the Gamecocks will host Arkansas at Founders Park. Those games are at 7 o'clock on Friday, 3 o'clock on Saturday, and 1:30 on Sunday. A very, very big opportunity for the Gamecocks. As we mentioned earlier, Arkansas is 30-5 overall and 12-3 in conference. Gamecocks will need Founders Park to be loud. It's a great weekend to go. When you got the spring game happening Saturday, you can catch all the baseball and football you want. So I hope that Founders Park is loud. After that, the Gamecocks travel to Kentucky. No midweek game next week. And then they'll host East Tennessee State for a midweek game on May 1st. They'll travel to Missouri. Missouri hasn't been the best in the SEC East so far this year, so a good opportunity for the Gamecocks to rack up some wins. And that kind of gets you through the next 2-3 weeks in baseball land. So hope the Gamecocks hold on against the Citadel tonight, and then big opportunity with Arkansas and Kentucky in back-to-back weeks. And, it would go a really, really long way to win both of those series, potentially win against East Tennessee State, and then you go to Missouri. You could be looking at, potentially seven wins coming up in SEC play, which would put the Gamecocks at 15 overall in the conference, and they get to 15 with what they have left with Georgia at home and on the road to Tennessee, which has been impossible to win there this year. Tennessee is 25-2 at home. But, you have a chance to get to 16, 17, 18 wins in conference if you can find ways to sweep Arkansas and Kentucky, which has been it's a pretty tall task. It's a tall order, but I do think the Gamecocks have the players to do it. It's got to be playing together at the right time. So we'll keep you updated on the baseball game as it continues. Now in the bottom of the seventh, no outs. Gamecocks up 4-2 over the Citadel. We're going to take a break here in a little bit, but before we do so, I did want to talk a little about Gamecock women's basketball. The season's over. We gave them their flowers and their roses after they beat Iowa to win the national championship, but we give a lot of time to the men's sports here, and I wanted to give a little bit of time to Gamecock women's basketball. Next year, outside of Camila Cardoza, South Carolina pretty much returns every meaningful player on the roster as things stand right now. Replacing Cardoso is going to be interesting. She was the Final Four most outstanding player, the leading scorer and rebounder for the Gamecocks. So, it's going to be tough, but at the same time, Dawn always finds a way to reload. And talking about reloading, they have, 3 incoming freshmen next year. They're all really highly ranked. All 3 are top 28 players in the class. It starts with Joyce Edwards, 6'3" forward from Camden. For me, I think that she has every right to be penciled in as the number 1 player in her class. She has been the number 1 player in her class at different times. And, when you see what she did at the McDonald's All-American practices and what she did in the game, you kind of scratch your head how there could be 2 better players than Joyce Edwards entering college basketball next year. But then you have point guard Madison McDaniel. Madison is the 14th ranked incoming freshman for next year. She's a 5'9" point guard from Maryland. And then post player Adele Tack is still listed in the rankings. She actually came to South Carolina a little bit early. She's rehabbing an injury, but she was 28th she's ranked 28th in the high school class. She's 6'5". When you look at Joyce Edwards, Madison McDaniel, and Adele Tack, the rich just get richer in Columbia. And next year is just going to be a really fun year for the women's team. I think Malaysia Fulwiley is primed for an even bigger role next year. She averaged 11 points on 18 minutes per game this year as a freshman, and she had a million eye-popping plays that called the attention of NBA players. ESPN had a tweet about her, pretty frequently throughout the season. I think that she is just going to be electric with the ball in her hands next year and is really primed to score a lot of points for the Gamecocks. And then when you think about returning Tihana Paupau, she's a steady combo guard. She shot 46.8% from three this year. When I was looking at my notes, I knew she was a great shooter, but I did not realize she was close to 50%. Ashlyn Watkins, heck of an athlete. She gobbled up 7.4 rebounds per game. And then, it's just crazy. I haven't talked about Bree Hall, Chloe Kitts, Raven Johnson, Tessa Johnson. South Carolina is 100% going to be the number one preseason team in the country next year. And they're looking at another potential undefeated season. I don't think that anybody in college basketball on the women's side has just as much sheer talent as Dawn Staley has been able to amass at South Carolina. And looking at Dawn has, three national championships and 6 Final Fours so far in her coaching career. She's going to be a Hall of Fame women's basketball coach. She's probably just going to be in the College Basketball Hall of Fame. She's already there as a player. She's going to be there as a coach as well. Dawn Staley's just made the Gamecocks the premier brand in women's college basketball, and it's not going to slow down anytime soon. When you think about it, it's kind of unbelievable to look at the last couple of years. I did the math earlier, and it was, 167-14 over her last 5 seasons coaching the Gamecocks. So when you think about the Asia Wilsons, the Leah Ballstons, Camila Cardosas that have come through, and all the other players that have been drafted highly in the WNBA, to have a record of 167-14 over the last 5 years, that's a 92% win percentage. Looking at the last 2 years, one loss in the Final Four. That's it. So 38-0 and 36-1. They won a national championship losing 7 games. I don't think that there will be a time in the near future where the Gamecocks win a national championship losing 7 games. But it's really tough because in 2019-2020, unanimous number 1 team in the country, finished the season 32-1. There was no NCAA tournament that year in men's or women's basketball due to COVID. I agree with Dawn. Hang a banner for that, because that was one of the best teams I think Dawn has actually had. And, I'd put up this team from 2023, 2024 up against anybody personally. So we got a lot to get to. We're going to take a quick break. I'm going to dive into Gamecock men's basketball, and then I'm going to get you primed for some football, a lot of stuff coming out from scrimmages, a lot of stuff in recruiting going on. So we'll touch on that after these words from our sponsors.
I said, oh, Lord Jesus, it's a fire. Ain't nobody got time for that.
Emergencies and accidents happen. When you're in the middle of a fire or water event, all you want is for things to return to normal as soon as possible. Resto Pros of the Midlands is with you. RestoProsMidlandsSC.com. Open 24/7 when you need them. Quality that is guaranteed.
Down here in the South, we don't always see eye to eye. While our taste in college football teams, or what sauce, if any, goes best on a rack of ribs, or what to mix with our Dixie vodka might be up for debate, we can all agree there's nothing better than a Southern tailgate. And like our favorite college teams, our ingredients come from small towns and big cities. They're grown in Southern soil, are crafted by Southern hands, and proudly represent the South in our backyard and beyond. So raise a glass of Dixie Southern Vodka to celebrate being made in America and raised in the South.
Oh, man, the building is on fire.
During and after natural disasters or accidents, there can be a heavy loss to property. Resto Pros of the Midlands is here to help. Open 24/7. Call them when you need them. 803-493-0170. RestoProsMidlandsSC.com. Quality that is guaranteed.
Welcome back into the show, everyone. Looking at this update here on the baseball game, still 4-2, 2 outs in the bottom of the seventh. I'll be honest, I really can't stand this scoreboard because I cannot tell if runners are on base or not, but it looks like the bases are now juiced for the Citadel. 2 outs, bottom of the seventh. It's a bases loaded situation for McCreary. Let's see what he can do. We got Gamecocks need one more out there, so we'll keep you posted there. Checking in on chat row here. Yeah, that's pretty interesting with Cardoso and Angel Reese playing together. There will definitely be some fun conversations that are had. I'd imagine a little bit of trash talk and just interesting times. And then Caitlin Clark going to play with Aaliyah Boston. I mean, that team just I guess they're tanking, they're building, whatever it is. But when you have Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston, the back-to-back reigning national players of the year on your team. And obviously with Aaliyah Boston able to win WNBA Rookie of the Year, it should be a lot of fun watching the WNBA this summer. The one thing I hate is that they run their playoffs up against college football, and I just don't like that. I don't think you should be messing with football for your playoffs if you're the WNBA, but I get it with the way the schedule works with the college kids filling rosters and a lot of the women going overseas to play in the offseason to make more money. I kind of get why it happens. It's not funny, but I did think it was interesting when I saw Caitlin Clark's rookie contract. I think that she makes like $63,000 her first year, $70,000 her second year, $80,000 her third year, and like $90,000 her fourth year. It's just crazy the difference in compensation, and we all know why. We know it's because the WNBA doesn't make as much money as the NBA does, and collective bargaining can only go so far when there's only X amount of dollars in the pot. But I'm sure that she will have a lot of endorsement deals, and maybe Angel Reese will keep some endorsement deals. Aaliyah Boston has some, so we'll still be seeing them on commercials, and they'll make their money that way. But just really interesting to me how that stuff works. But on to men's basketball, and yeah, Michael, I do see your question about Cam Scott. I'll get to him in a little bit, but I kind of want to just kind of reset the roster really quick, and I kind of went through this exercise earlier today just to get a feel for it. When you look at the Gamecock men's basketball team as it stands right now, I think that you would have to plug in Jacoby Wright as the point guard. Not necessarily what I view as like a true point guard. He's much more of an undersized combo guard. Did average close to 6 points a game this year, 2 assists. The Gamecocks shared the basketball so well that there wasn't anybody outside of Talon Cooper that had really high assist numbers. So right now, Jacoby's probably slotted in your point guard. At shooting guard, you're probably looking at Miles Studi. Miles is he's a strong kid, 6'4", 209. Miles had some big scoring outputs last year and some clutch moments. Zach Davis probably slots in at small forward, I'd say. Obviously, Colin Murray Boyles at power forward. Josh Gray at center. So as the roster stands right now, that would be my sort of mid-portal season starting lineup for the Gamecocks. And I think that lineup is good enough with the emergence of Colin Murray Boyles and what I think they're going to get out of Zach Davis to be pretty competitive in the SEC. And then when you look at the bench there, that'll be Morris Ugasuk, Arden Conyers, Benjamin Bosmans Verdonk, and then Trent Noah and Oku Federico, who are 2 freshmen that are coming in next year. I do think that Trent Noah is going to push for playing time. He's a composite 3-star. I think he's ranked in the 130s. but he averaged 29.7 points and 10.5 rebounds a game last year. Chose South Carolina over Butler, Seton Hall, Western Kentucky, California, where his visits and his main offers. I think Trent Noah is going to be a really good player for South Carolina. I've seen him listed anywhere from 6'6" to 6'7", 200 to 215 pounds. We'll have to see when he gets on campus what his true size is. And then Oku Federico, I think he probably is going to need some time. He's going to play power forward for the Gamecocks. He's a top 150 guy. I chose South Carolina over Pittsburgh and Syracuse. Same thing with Morris. I mean, there's going to be a little bit of transition time for Morris and Oku, but I think that they both ooze potential. And I don't want to say like the sky is the limit, as in like, surefire NBA players, all conference players, but I do think that those guys will be a little bit better. Some non-scholarship players to keep in mind. You have Austin Hero. He's going to be a redshirt freshman next year. That's Tyler Hero's younger brother. I watched him in Garnet and Black Madness, and he was okay. He probably needs to work on his handle, get a little bit stronger at 6'1", 175, 180. He's probably pushing 190 now, being in a strength and conditioning program for as long as he has been. Then you have Eli Sparkman and Danny Grazi as non-scholarship players. So that does leave 3 roster spots on the team. We'll go ahead and get into the Cam Scott stuff. We'll get into some portal stuff here. But I did want to make note that the Gamecocks are returning, roughly half of their points per game. They're returning about 60% of their rebounds and about half of their assists per game from last year's team. So guys are going to have improvement that are, in the system, been a part of the Gamecock team for at least 1 year now, and like Colin Murray Boyle's case. So I think that you'll probably see some additional points per game from these guys, and someone's going to have to grab rebounds and assists. And the way the Gamecocks box out, they'll be fine there. But as the roster sits right now, Joe Lenardi put out his first bracketology yesterday, and he has the Gamecocks as a 10 seed in the NCAA tournament and one of the last teams with a first-round bye. So basically that just means no playing game in Dayton. So I think the Gamecocks are finally getting some respect. I think Coach Lamont Parrish is getting respect for what he's able to do with flipping rosters. He did that at Chattanooga. He has 3 scholarships left. I know that the staff would like to find a way to get at least 2 more portal players. Obviously, this Cam Scott stuff kind of came out of left field. Some rumors happened over the weekend that he was looking to get out of his national letter of intent with Texas. For those of you who don't know, Cam Scott is a top 40 prospect in the country. In the composite, he's like in the 50s, and according to 24/7 Sports, he is like number 35. Things move fast in college basketball, and when a kid decides to ask out of his national letter of intent this late in the recruiting cycle, the odds are that the kid knows where he's going. I saw a report today. I haven't been able to check on the accuracy of it, but someone said that he could be committing tomorrow. I don't know if that's 100% definite, but if it is, then Gamecock fans will know shortly what his plans are. I do know that Cam is very close to Gigi Jackson, knows Colin Murray Boyles well. Both Gigi and CMB are big proponents of South Carolina, and also big proponents of players staying home and playing for their home state school and the flagship school of the state of South Carolina, which is the University of South Carolina. So if the Gamecocks are ultimately able to land Cam Scott, there's no other way to say it. It's a big-time commitment for Lamont Parrish and his staff. I've talked to some coaches that had to play against Cam Scott. I've talked to some coaches that kind of gave me a rundown on his game. He's a kid that committed to Texas over South Carolina. He's on record saying that South Carolina finished second in his recruitment. From a body size, he kind of reminds me of PJ Dozier, tall and lean and really athletic. I think Cam Scott's probably a more fluid athlete than PJ Dozier. Maybe doesn't have the point guard skills, but has a much better shooting touch. If the Gamecocks are able to get Cam Scott, he would be an immediate replacement for Meechie Johnson, in my opinion. He might take some time to adjust to the college game, but I think by SEC play, he has enough natural ability to fill in with what Meechie did. And look, with Meechie, there was some inconsistency. There's probably going to be some inconsistency if Cam Scott ultimately joins the Gamecocks. it just takes time to adjust to the college game from high school, no matter how talented you are. He's definitely probably going to need to gain a little bit of weight, a little bit of strength. But if he comes to South Carolina, he'll be one of the better players on the Gamecocks roster. I don't think this recruitment is going to drag out long. Like I said, he maybe is making a commitment tomorrow. I know that the Gamecock coaching staff has been all over Cam Scott since he was released from his national letter of intent. When you sign a national letter of intent, it's not like coaches can poach you. It's not like you can have conversations with players and try and convince them to do other things. So I know that Texas has had some movement on the roster. They picked up a shooting guard that's ranked a little bit higher than Cam Scott. Maybe ultimately, he's saying, I don't want to go that far away from home. So I think that the Gamecocks would be in a good spot for Cam Scott. And I think that, being local in Lexington, his family having the opportunity to see him play, showing what Lamont did with South Carolina 2 years ago with G.G. Jackson and this year with Colin Murray Boyles. I think that, if the Gamecocks are able to get a last second in-state miracle a la G.G. Jackson, enrolling early and joining the Gamecocks, Cam Scott can do that. And that would be a lot of buzz for South Carolina at this point in the recruiting process and this recruiting cycle. And then the Gamecocks will shift to filling the remaining 2 scholarship slots for next season. The latest intel I have is the coaching staff is really trying to zero in on a point guard that can replace Talon Cooper, probably an older guy who has some experience to him, and then a big man through the portal. And that's, hinging on the Gamecocks getting Cam Scott, which, we'll see what happens there. But there's certainly a lot of positives for the Gamecocks when it comes to Cam Scott. So they're probably going to be looking at, if they don't get Cam Scott, they're going to be looking at probably 2 guards, a point guard and a combo guard in the portal, and then a big man. So in this era of the transfer portal and NIL, coaches across the country, they're keeping their cards really close to their vest. And I'll be honest, not just in South Carolina, but it's been really hard for me to find information and talking to different people about other teams around the country, kind of getting a feel for who's taking who wants to go where. Coaches are kind of moving in the shadows here. I know that South Carolina has kicked the tires on a number of players. JP Pegues, who's going to Auburn, was one that they had as their number 1 point guard target in the portal. I think they probably finished second to Auburn there. He had some connections to the Auburn staff and had an opportunity to go to Auburn, and that's what he decided to do. Mount St. Mary's combo guard Dakota LeFew, 6'5" guy who was all MAC this past season. I think he averaged like 17 points a game, 4 assists, 4 rebounds. He has a final 6 of Villanova, Syracuse, Pitt, South Carolina, and I think it's Georgia and Xavier. But I've seen a lot of rumors that Syracuse is the current favorite there, and we'll see what happens. I know that Syracuse just lost a big man to the transfer portal that's going to be highly recruited. I don't know how good Syracuse will be next year. Villanova just lost a guy to the transfer portal, a combo guard. Probably an opportunity to step right in there. Obviously, it's South Carolina. The opportunities there as well. And Georgia, say what you want about Georgia. They got to the NIT championship. And then Xavier with Sean Miller, you just don't know. But it's good to see South Carolina in the mix for these kind of guys in the portal, whether they get them or don't. Wisconsin transfer Connor Isagen visited this past weekend. He had a really good freshman year for Wisconsin. And talking to people, Wisconsin fans don't really know why he didn't get as much playing time as he had in the past. So he has visits with Indiana, Michigan, Nebraska. Again, it's just good to be on these guys' radars. As far as big man stuff, Gamecocks are going to try and find the best one they can in the portal. If you see a kid visit South Carolina, that should perk your ears up. This stuff is pretty hush-hush, but if you're a member of thebigspur.com, I know that John Whittle is going to keep you updated as much as he can on a day-to-day basis. Just remember, South Carolina is going to find their guys in the portal. And, there's 2,000 kids in the portal right now. 300 to 400 of those kids are going to go to Power 5 programs and maybe Power 6 when you think about the Big East, and a handful of mid-majors that can step in there. So the Gamecocks are going to find people. Don't worry about that. I know that Coach Lamont Paris vets the transfers extremely thoroughly, and talking with them, making sure that they're fit for the team culture and understand, what he envisions their role will be, and make sure the kids are okay with that role. But all in all, it'd be great to land Cam Scott. It'd be great to, go ahead and get a Cam Scott in the bag, and then have, another stud player for other guys in the portal to want to play with. So all in all, I think the Gamecocks are going to field another competitive team in the SEC next season. And I think that the trajectory is looking really good for South Carolina. We're going to close this show out with football. We'll knock out some bad news first. Defensive back Zabari Sandy tore his ACL Saturday in the Gamecock scrimmage. That's definitely a multiple month injury. Sometimes those things can linger out for a year. The odds are he's out for this upcoming season, probably going to take a medical red shirt. But the good news is that players are coming back faster and stronger than ever from ACL and lower leg injuries. So we wish the best to Zabari in his recovery. Some other bad news, if you're following four-star quarterback recruit Ryan Montgomery, he's going to be committing tomorrow. He was scheduled to visit South Carolina for the spring game this Saturday. That visit will not be happening. All indications are that he will commit to Georgia tomorrow. There was a lot of scuttlebutt on message boards that Georgia was kind of slow playing Ryan Montgomery, and seeing what could potentially happen and with the Bulldogs and their higher rated quarterbacks. But the bottom line is that the Bulldogs are ready to accept his commitment, and he is ready to join the Bulldog recruiting class. I don't think it's going to stop Georgia from recruiting other quarterbacks this recruiting cycle, but as of now, I think he's locked in with Georgia. So where does South Carolina go next? I'm not really sure at quarterback. Obviously, you have Lenore Sellers, who has 4 years of eligibility available to him. You have Robbie Ashford, who I think has 1 year available to him. And then you have Dante Reno, probably third or fourth string. I would actually say Luke Doty's probably third string if it came down to it. I'm pretty high on Reno's long-term upside, but he's probably a year or two away from really pushing Sellers. And that's not a knock on Dante Reno. I think he's got really good potential. In 2026, you have high four-star quarterback Landon Duckworth already committed. He's a top 50 overall player in his class, and he has just as much upside as Sellers, in my opinion. But, Duckworth is still 2 years away from stepping on campus. I think that South Carolina is going to have to circle the wagons and look who is out there at the quarterback position and see who they can get in the game for. Will Wilson from Columbia committed to NC State, and then you got Cutter Woods and Anderson, and he recently committed to Wake Forest. I'm sure that Dowell Loggins and the coaching staff will, at the very least, try and put feelers out to both of those guys. I know that South Carolina, just like a lot of other college football programs, spends a lot of time and an effort explaining to quarterbacks exactly where they are on their pecking order. And when they zero in on a guy, the conversations are had that, look, we're going to run this race with Ryan Montgomery. He's number one on our board. There's not a knock against you, but that's just who we see right now. And so coaches have to do that. There are not very many programs in the country that are signing 2 quarterbacks a year. And South Carolina is certainly not one of those right now. So outside of the Cutter Woods and the Will Wilson, I think the coaching staff is going to have to see what shakes out. I don't have a clear answer at the quarterback position in this class. We'll have to wait and see for now. It may come quickly. The portal is going to open after spring football for all these football programs, and there might be some guys that are not happy with being second or third on the depth chart and wanting to make a change of scenery. And I could see the Gamecocks grabbing somebody there. But I do feel strongly that whether it comes from the recruiting ranks, transfer portal window opening up here in a couple days, couple weeks, and then also the transfer portal opening up at the end of this upcoming football season, South Carolina will add a quarterback to its roster. As for next season, the Gamecocks are currently over the scholarship limit by 1 scholarship. That's just based on my math. I think they're at 86 scholarship players. They got to get to 85 by August. Shane Beamer is going to do what he does after every spring practice. He's in spring game. He's going to talk to pretty much virtually every player on the roster. There might have to be some tough conversations about where a player is in the pecking order and what their future looks like at South Carolina. And, I think you're probably going to see some more guys exit the program after spring ball ends. How many? I don't know. I think that, it's got to be one. It's got to be one to get down to the 85 limit. I would imagine it'd be somewhere between 4 and 6 guys. And that's just an educated guess. I think, to make room for some offensive linemen and wide receivers and potentially a quarterback. And I know they're not going to turn down a defensive back that can push the guys on the roster and contribute this year. Gamecocks are going to try and probably add 3 to 5 more guys to the roster for next season. A wide receiver name that I can give you is Penn State wide receiver Keandre Lambert-Scott, 6'1", 188 pounds, 4-star out of high school. Career 1,700 yards, like 125 career receptions and 11 touchdowns. That's a guy that averaged like 13 yards per catch in his time at Penn State. That would be a guy that would make the wide receiver room better. Jay Diz, I don't know about any defensive tackles. Defensive tackles are tough to find in the transfer portal. They're definitely going to try and bring some in as recruits this year, as signees. But South Carolina does have 4 players committed, 2 at wide receiver. Jaden Seller is a high 3-star wide receiver from South Florence. Obviously, that's Lenore Seller's younger brother. Brian Rowell, 6 foot, 175-pound freak athlete from Concord, North Carolina. He's another high 3-star wide receiver. Anthony Addison's a mid 3-star, 6'3", 210-pound defensive end from Sumter High School and State. Sumter always puts out good defensive ends. And then a mid 3-star, 6'2", 180-pound safety from Abbeville High School. So for those of you that were wanting commitments, it is commitment season right now, and it will continue throughout this summer. The spring game is coming up on Saturday. Obviously, the Gamecocks are expecting a good amount of prospects on campus for the game. The headliner, as far as 2025 guys go, it's got to be offensive tackle David Sanders out of Charlotte. Gamecocks made his top 6. He's going to take official visits to Clemson, Georgia, Tennessee, Alabama, and Ohio State. That's what's scheduled right now. I would anticipate a decision from him definitely this summer, definitely before his high school season starts. You got tight end Preston Douglas from Florida. Visit set up with South Carolina and Florida State. Already visited NC State. 4-star cornerback Jonte Gilbert from Atlanta, Georgia. We've talked about him a lot on this show. He decommitted from Ohio State last year, either during the football season or right before the college season started. Had some Clemson buzz, had a lot of South Carolina buzz at one time, some Tennessee buzz. I know that his plan was to kind of take it slow this go around. And when he commits, want to commit to a place that he's not going to change his mind on. But getting him back on campus is huge. He's a guy I think the Gamecocks can land. You got 4-star wide receiver Malik Clark out of Rock Hill. He's got official visits set up with South Carolina, North Carolina, NC State. There was some North Carolina buzz. They've just done more with him, but getting him on campus is a big start in his recruitment to really get that going. Already mentioned 3-star defensive end Anthony Addison and 3-star defensive back DeMarcus Leach. They're both committed to South Carolina. Who else? 4-star defensive end Jared Smith out of Alabama. Really good prospect. Top 50 guy in the country overall. Official visits set up with South Carolina, Georgia, Tennessee, and Southern Cal. 4-star offensive lineman Juan Gatson out of Georgia. He's got official visits with Georgia, South Carolina, Texas, and Oregon. 4-star offensive lineman Shedrick Surratt Jr. out of Gaffney. Kind of a guy I feel like the Gamecocks discovered. He's going to official visit to South Carolina soon. He also has offers from Florida and NC State that he picked up recently. Got a handful of 3-star guys. Isaac Solis Jr., tight end Mike Tyler, tight end Hayden Bradley, Hayden Bradley is an interesting guy. That tight end's out of Georgia. He's committing April 27th. I don't know if that's going to be to the Gamecocks. He has an official visit set up for Miami in June. He's picked up just a slew of offers recently. Teams like Pitt, Virginia Tech, Michigan State, Missouri, UCLA, Penn State. He's not someone that I have a true feel for one way or another, but I'll ask around on him. But always good that he's going to be on campus this weekend with a commitment set for April 27th. That's not too far away. That's give or take a week from his visit to South Carolina. It'll probably be his last visit before he makes a commitment. In 2026, you got a bunch of guys. The headliner is four-star quarterback Landon Duckworth. He's committed to South Carolina. He's a top 50 guy in the country. Four-star wide receiver Dazier Carter, Woodbury Forest, Virginia. It's always good to get these 2026 guys on campus for your spring game. You really continue to build those relationships. You got a handful of offensive linemen, Darius Gray from Virginia, Genevieve Carr from Florida, Anthony Baxter from Rock Hill, and Desmond Green from St. Stephen. Those guys have been to campus a lot. I really like the Gamecocks' chances there. And then wide receiver Jordan Gidron from Columbia, South Carolina. Just another guy that's coming to campus and building those 2026 relationships. It's always good to see these guys up close and personal on campus. So that's where things stand right now. Overall, a very good spring game list of visitors. There'll likely be some more names that trickle in over the next few days and up to Saturday. As always, if you're not a member of the BigSpur.com, I highly recommend you join today. As Hale McGranahan, best in the business covering recruiting for South Carolina. He knows everybody, talks to everybody. He's got you covered with all the news and notes coming out of the weekend. There's going to be a lot of news and notes coming out of the weekend. And I'll tell you one thing, I think that Monday night's VIP room is going to be worth the price of admission for the BigSpur.com. So make sure you join up there. But excited for the spring game. I know that Coach Beamer said that it's going to be a draft style, like an NFL draft style picking of the teams. They're going to try and balance things out, make sure the offensive linemen that are picked are playing with guys that played before, minimize injuries and confusion. But it'll be fun to see Robbie Ashford. It'll be fun to see Lenore Sellers. It's going to be fun to see Dante Reno. It's going to be fun when they do whatever trick play they're going to do. And just a lot of fresh eyes on especially the wide receivers that we haven't seen play yet. Spring games are usually pretty vanilla, but we're all dying for some football now. So I'm really excited to watch the spring game. Obviously, we got big baseball series against Arkansas coming up at Founders Park. Can't wait for that. Should be really, really good series. The Gamecocks would do well to find a way to take 2 out of 3 from Arkansas this weekend. So if you can get to Columbia, get to Founders Park, get to the spring game, it'll just be a heck of a lot of fun. It's a great weekend. I expect some basketball news to come soon. Cam Scott, I saw a report he might be committing tomorrow. I haven't confirmed that, but this portal stuff will start to trickle out shortly, and I think the Gamecock basketball team on the men's side is going to be well equipped to handle the rigors of SEC play. And then the women, we talked about at the start of the show, they're just going to keep on trucking and, potential undefeated season again next year. So one last update on the baseball game. It's the top of the 9th inning. Gamecocks have a runner on second base, it looks like. 2-0 count to Will Tippett, and the Gamecocks are winning 4-3. Will Tippett is laying down a sacrifice, and he got beamed. I don't know if he got beamed in the head. I don't know if he got the bat around and back or if he's going to get a free base here. It might be a strike. But cheer on the Gamecocks the rest of the way against the Citadel. And just want to thank all of y'all from the bottom of my heart for joining me tonight. When you all give me your time, it's the most valuable thing that you have. I never take it for granted. I'm so thankful for it. And I'm thankful for all of you to be on this ride with me. If you ever want to reach out to me, you can find me on the BigSpur.com under the username Matt Anderson. You can reach out to me on Twitter at Late Night Gamecock Show or Late Night Gamecock. It's in the It's it's on the screen right now. And then you can find me by email at latenightgamecockshow@gmail.com. Appreciate all of you, and we'll talk next week after the spring game. There'll definitely be a lot to discuss and talk about. So thank you again for joining me tonight, and hope you have a great rest of your week. Talk to you soon.